and literally probably about 10 seconds or so per image as we go through initially. Those of us that are members will go through, and if you've pulled up that information on your phone, the competition image voting form, there'll be scores. If you hold it horizontally, it works a little better than vertically, but scores from 5 to 10, and each of the images will come up alphabetically in order. We'll start off with the beginner intermediate color, then advanced color, intermediate, beginner black and white, and then advanced black and white. And as we go through those, members will go through and vote as we run through these on the first round. Greg, if you want to, if you're jotting notes down or whatever and so forth in that beside you, if you've got that, the sheet that has all the titles in that, maybe a couple comments or whatever and so forth in that, and hold those to the side. And then after we've done our voting, then we go through and we, Bruce will run through each of the images again, and that time you'll have an opportunity to provide a brief critique, probably up to 30, 40 seconds or whatever in that per image, and then give a score also of between 5 and 10. I think that covers it. We'll go ahead and with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Bruce, and we'll go ahead and get started here.
Okay.
Don't score that one.
Yeah. Let's see. So we're starting with beginner, intermediate color. Can you see that at home?
I don't know if they do, because on my screen here,
No, I don't think so. Hang on a second. I gotta reshare. Now you should see it at home.
Now we see it.
Okay. This one is called Alien Pods. Not working. I'm up. Here I want it. Okay, the next one is called Aurora's Ribbons. Oh, sorry, this is zoomed in for some reason.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
So we go back to the first one.
Yeah, go back.
that might change the way the perspective of that first one looks. Yeah.
That one was that one. And that's it. It's zoomed in again. Aurora's Ribbons. Okay. Brotherly competition. Matrix not there. Okay, this one did not make the. It's on the. It's not on the.
there.
It's on here. Yeah. So skipping that one. This one is don't walk on the grass.
On that last one, is there a way? I guess we don't really have a way to.
No, because it wouldn't go into Chuck's score.
Okay.
Yeah, it would mess up.
Chuck would not be happy.
No.
Yeah. The next one is foam. This one is Greek Isle White. Sorry, it's zooming it for some reason. I'll just have to hit everybody. Okay. The next one is hot pots in the fog. This is Peterburg's Harbor, Alaska. The next one is rainy night in Canisa, and it is Zoom, sorry. I mispronounced it. This one is, oops, sun rays, question mark. This one is tentacles. Oh, okay. That's came in strange. I'm gonna zoom it out. It's not as bad. This is the heavens. You want to zoom?
It just the pixels are kind of.
It's pixelated.
Outside.
Can't use a small image. We were having problems getting this one loaded. Yeah. Now we go on to
Advanced color.
color. Come on. This is called Adorned in Petals. This is autumn. Should be autumn red, but it's autumn.
The autumn red is the name of it.
This is blue on blue. Flash of the season. Zuns. Evening on the farm. Galactic fire water drop explosion. Ghostly. No, sorry. Too many people talking to me. Ghost of the forest, past. in the pink. Light on Snuffles. Misty morning. Monday morning mood. Mothers. New York City sunset. This one is Orange You Tired. This one is Stranded. This one is The Guardian. This is Youthful Antiquity. Now we're going to beginner intermediate monochrome. This one is Angler's Ranch Bridge. This one is Bison Buddies. Contemplation. Early morning mist in China. Ghosts of Hudson Bay. Lonely Night. School's out for summer. Serenity in the Storm. I skip one?
SENTRY.
Okay. It's closer. Silent Witness. House Cemetery. Temple Boy. Tom Peak, sorry. It's okay. Or Thorn Peak, sorry. Yes, okay. And the last one is, wait. Advanced monochrome. Alone and Forgotten. Breaking Storm on the Plain.
Lockdown.
Dead Shot. Foggy Morning. Make sure it's zoomed in. Heading Home. History Fading. Misty Midnight Walk. Rain Down on Me. Setting the Mood. Silent Streets of Whitechapel. Standing on Guard. The Gallery. Trees in the Mist. Valley of Clouds. Once you get through, you can go down, hit submit.
Yeah, you'll skip the next four categories, all are print, and then down at the bottom, there's a green button that says submit.
All right, you ready for me to comment?
Yes.
Yeah, Greg, go ahead. Sorry about that. Yeah, now we'll go through those and give you the opportunity to, comment, critique, and again, a score between 5 and 10.
Yep. So I'll comment first and score at the end. So I like this idea, kind of cleverly seen here, these plants. The title I thought went really well with it. Obviously some strong light on it. And I think this one would be a great candidate for conversion to black and white. you'd appreciate the contrasting light a lot more. And then as a color image, it can be kind of off-putting because you get those bright whites on there. I like the idea here. I think the crop to me is a little off. That upper right corner, not liking seeing the dirt, and there's some other things back there. Seems like more of the action is really this kind of front item here as well as the left. So I might try to crop in just a little bit on it. But I think it's a nice attempt. We'll give this one a 7.
Aurora ribbons.
Yeah, so nice. I like this, including kind of a wider scene, not just the Aurora Borealis here, but we're seeing the trees and the house lit up here. So I think that's good. Not the lower right corner, seeing a little bit of the color in the sky there. I don't think you need that. To me, it pulls my eye down there because there's a bright spot. I'd almost crop off just a little bit off the right there. But really good on your exposure. We get the little bit of stars there, so you got a good shutter speed. So I like this one overall, except that little lower right corner, kind of a nit. So we'll give this one a 9.
This is brotherly competition.
Yeah, so interesting idea here with the kids, and it's framed as kind of triangular framing with the setting sun there at the beach. I think the poses of the kids, I guess I wish would have liked to seen maybe some type of interaction with them, because the one kid on the right is kind of looking right here at the camera. The one on the left appears to be turned back looking at him. It's hard to tell with the silhouette. So it's not the most pleasing silhouettes just with their shapes. So I wish maybe they're both running both to the same side. So I think you haven't quite captured the right moment in time, but I like your overall composition and exposure is good. Some really pretty color there. So I'll give this one an A. A really good effort and good try, but wait for another moment next time.
What was the score?
Number score?
8.
This one, Skip. This is don't walk on the grass.
So yeah, interesting. Yeah, there you go. So interesting with this repeating pattern, kind of an abstract. So yeah, it's kind of neat. I think when you do this kind of image, you really got to think about sharpness and whether you want to go really sharp across the image or really soft across the image. To me, it seems like there's some sharpness areas in the dead center. It kind of falls off pretty significantly around the edges. And so I kind of wish it was one or the other, either all soft or all sharp. But the composition overall is pretty good. I like the spacing between the various ribbons there. I give this one a 7.
Foam.
If you've seen my website and if you attended my presentation before, you know I like abstracts and these kinds of patterns. So really, really good job finding this kind of scene at this little foam on this water. Again, this is another one where sharpness is I think important. It looks like to me where the photographer focused was about just north of center frame there, maybe where there's that kind of where the foam starts getting a little brighter. I think for this image, this type of image, you need to focus somewhere more in the foreframe and let hyperfocal distance and a larger f-stop or smaller f-stop carry your sharpness through the rest of the image. So it's almost like this is focused at north of center there, and maybe it's shot at like f5.6, f8, something like that. And it really need to be shot at like f16 and focus on something more in the foreground and let that f16 aperture get your sharpness back through the image. So I think the overall composition is nice. I just wish there was more sharpness there. And I wish there was a little bit more light on the foreground foam. It's all in shadow. So it's kind of like you can draw a diagonal line from lower right to upper left. And the bottom triangle is going to be pretty in shadow, and the top is pretty bright. And so, photography rule number one: don't put your horizon dead center. It also applies to this kind of image where you kind of divide the image in half with half shadow, half light. And I don't think it works particularly for this image. So I think nicely seen, but too many technical things for me. So I'm gonna give it a 6.
Greek Isle, light.
There you go. Yeah, really nice. When we first showed this, it was cropped in. I like that image too, but the wider image I like even better. So here's a case where shooting at a non-optimal time of the day when we have some strong shadows actually works for you. I think had this been shot early morning or late evening when the light's really soft, it would just kind of washed out all the white. So having the sunlight a little higher in the sky and casting some shadows really adds to the image in this case. So I think that worked out really well for the photographer. Really love the composition here. Got a lot of strong geometric elements, and then that little bit of red window there to give a little pop of color, a little interest there in the left. So I really like that. So I really don't see anything wrong with this one. So I'm gonna give this one a full 10.
Hot pots in the fog.
I like this this play of the fog on the top, and then we have the bright bit of orange cauldron there in the bottom. So I think that really plays well to your composition. So yeah, I like the layout of this one. And when you do fog, it's very hard to get the exposure right. And the photographer's done a really good job here, getting a good light in there. We're still getting some brightness in the background. And so I like this one. To me, it's a little flat. I think the contrast could be amped up a little bit to give the blacks there a little bit more punch, because it just seems kind of middle-ish, and I think we need more punch in our histogram. So I think just a few edits can bring it up even higher, but as it stands, I may give this one an 8.
Petersburg Harbor, Alaska.
Yeah, nice job with the night scene on this. We get these interesting yellow colors from the different temperature of light compared to the rest of it. I like your composition here with this, kind of diagonal element of the walkway going down to the floating piers there on the left. It almost looks like it's a little off axes as far as it's the horizon line. Seems like to me it's leaning a little bit to the right. So I'd try to straighten that out a little bit. But I like the balance of the clouds up top and then some type of mountain or something there in the background with the bright, all the color of the lights and stuff like that. So yeah, really, really nice on this one. Give this one, I think for me, it needs a little bit more interest. I think the boats kind of get a little cluttered for me. And I wish maybe in the foreground, these boats, if there had been maybe a more interesting boat or something like that to kind of anchor the image, would have made it a lot stronger. So we're gonna give this one an 8.
Rainy night in Incanusen.
There you go. Yeah, really nice, kind of moody image here with these looks like almost wet cobblestones there, and then the neon lights add a little color to the background. I really like your exposure here with these perspective lines coming in and the bikes there on the right, and then we got the storefronts on the left. So really good job with your exposure, like the little starburst there upper right from the small aperture. So done a really good job. There's a person or two way in the back there. You don't quite see them at first. Would have been better if they were maybe a little bit more, not necessarily in the front of the frame, but maybe more middle frame, so we could appreciate them. Because as they stand, they kind of blend into the background. But overall, it's a nice image. Got a nice, cool blue tone to it. I give this one a 9.
Sun rays.
Zoom out. Is that the full image?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So cropped a little tight there on the bottom. It seems. I wish it was maybe just a little bit more. If you include the trees, I think you could have maybe included whatever was below them. It seems a little tight for me. So This Aurora, you have the strong vertical thing. I don't necessarily think you need the full wide frame that you have here. Almost looks like a 4x5 crop. You might try cropping that in a little bit more narrow to kind of make it more of a vertical portrait crop instead of this wide shot, because I don't think you need all that dead space to the right, especially since we're not really appreciating the trees or the sky. It's getting pretty dark over there on the right side of the screen. But so yeah, nice exposure on this Aurora as well, with the little stars showing out. So I think to me the cropping is a little off, so I'm gonna give this one an 8.
Tentacles.
There you go. Okay. Nice. I like the composition here. Again, we have some strong light. Again, might be a candidate for monochrome conversion. That doesn't always save the day when you have harsh light, but since this is a very graphic image with just shapes and some texture, a lot of times those make great monochrome images. And then you can be a little bit more forgiven with your bright whites on a monochrome. So might think about that. But I like your composition. Yeah, it's kind of clever. I guess it's some type of sculpture or something like that, octopus or something. So yeah, it's nice. We have a strong element coming in from the left of the large tentacle, and then the lower, almost 35-40% of the frame is kind of out of focus there. And I wish there was a little bit more depth of field. It doesn't have to be razor sharp down there, but wish it was just a little bit sharper, or maybe the composition was just a little bit more to the left, so I see a little bit more of the mane and tentacle, and maybe see both rows of those suction cups coming in, because I don't think you need as much of this kind of dead space there in the lower right, center right half you have. So I think your composition could change a little bit, but nice attempt. Give this one a 7.
This one is the heavens.
So yeah, it sounds like you maybe had some issues with the file size of this one, because it looks like it probably could be a good resolution photo. It's not like a tiny JPEG or something like that, but it sounds like that's just how it was submitted. So I'm not going to judge it on the technical, because it's clearly very pixelated because of this small file size. But I like the composition. I love these kind of bands we're having here. We got the mountainside, you've seen some detail in there, then this bright white of the clouds. We're seeing some good separation between the different whites in the clouds there. And then we got this blue, and then we get these shades of gray at the top. So it's kind of like this parfait that kind of stacks on top of each other. So really nice composition. I wish we could see a higher res version of it to really appreciate some of the subtle details in the clouds. So I'll give this one I'll give it a 7. I wish I could give it an 8, but I think just because I can't appreciate it in current state. So 7.
Okay. Next is advanced color. This is adorned in petals.
All right, so this kind of photo, when it's been heavily processed like this, what I find as a judge is I get really nitpicky, because if you're going to do this level of processing, I mean, this is really expert level processing here. When you're going to do this level of processing, I expect perfection, because that's the amount of time it takes to create this kind of image. So for me, her face is gorgeous. She got good light on her. Just enough soft light on the arms and stuff like that balances it out. The framing is really nice. I like the roses that are the bouquet that's in her hand, but I'm not liking the roses on her forehead. I think to me the lighting seems off on those. I don't know if they were added in later in post, or just how you lit them. I think that the lighting is not matching the lighting on the face, so to me they seem a little off. And I know this whole thing is heavily processed, and so it's kind of got that Thomas Kincaid kind of look to it, if you remember those old landscape paintings. So I think you just need to balance that ribbon on her head. And I think her face is so cute and it's well lit, that I don't want to detract from her face. And so I think that the flowers in her headband there, I would dull those down a bit so they weren't so as bright, almost to the luminosity values that we see in the bouquet in her hand. Or contrary, you could brighten the bouquet into the flowers in her hand, so then they're bright too. So then it seems more balanced. Like, yes, I'm getting light from upper stage left here, shining on her face, casting this wonderful Rembrandt lighting on her face, and it's casting the bright light on her headband and the bouquet. Right now, it just seems like it's not the same lighting, which tells me just the way it was processed, the way things are added in after the fact. It's not balanced out. So I'm gonna give this a 9. I think it's expert, and this is, like I said, expert level processing, but you gotta minute details. You gotta pay attention to.
Autumn red.
I like this one. Good. This is a nice perspective, getting down low, so you can go and see those branches just kind of splay out into the wonderful colors of orange. So really good job finding a tree that's nice and full, because obviously it's going to be in shadow, and so you're going to blow out the sky. We see those little peaks of white poking in through there, but that it works okay in this case because it creates little pops of light that balance out that kind of heavy red and orange colors we're seeing. So this is really nice. I like how the photographer did not put the trunk in the corner. It's in the right corner edge, but not coming directly out of the corner. I think that makes for a more dynamic image to include some orange down there in the bottom. So I really like this one. I think a really great perspective, a good subject, really nice color. So I think this one a 10.
Blue on blue.
Yeah, this nice moody image here, and then I think adding the human element is really nice. We're getting a little bit of highlights in the waves there. I wish that they were toned down a little bit to kind of continue with that moodiness that we're seeing on the right half of the frame. You could debate whether you even need those bright spots and those crashing waves. If you want to stick with the moodiness and change out the pano here and cut that, I'm kind of covering with my hand. See what that looks like. I think that would add, but then the people end up dead center, so kind of problematic. So I think the balance maybe is a little off in some of your elements here, but overall, I think this one's pretty nice. I'm gonna give this one an 8.
Flash of the season.
Like this kind of similar to the other mountain scene we saw earlier. I like this layering that we have here. We got the frosted spruces there, and then the aspens, and then the dusting on the field, and then we're even seeing more aspens there in the background, kind of hidden in the fog. So again, creating this kind of layering approach. It's really nice. It really allows your eye to kind of wander through the image and pick out these different elements. So I think the image is balanced really well. I like that you included the stuff in the fog there, because otherwise you'd have this big dead space right above the spruce tree there. So by having that other element, I think really fills out the frame. So this is really nice. It almost looks like it was snowing when it was taken, if I can, just based on some of the sharpness and how I look at it. So really nice, really, really pleasant to look at. I give this one a 9.
Evening on the farm.
A really great capture to capture, this low sunlight, creating these wonderful shadows on these hills. They're very bright and vibrant. So having those shadows, I think, to me, really balances that out. I love having that little bit of dust kicked off behind the tractor and catching the side light. That's really a nice element there. I like what's going on in the foreground. Midground's great. But the background, the upper right corner, I don't think we need that bright corner there, that bright edge. It's a really sharp angle there, a sharp line. My eye wants to be drawn to that sharp line. Maybe it's the engineer in me. I like straight lines, but it's also bright. But I don't want to go to the upper right. I want to stay right here in the center. That's where the beauty is. That's where the action is. So to me, that's pulling my eye away. So I'd almost crop this as a kind of fat pano, I guess, and just trim off right where that shadow of that ridge line the darkest part of that shadow forms and just chop off the top 5% of the image, because I don't think you need that. You have enough action going on in the rest of the image. You don't need the rest of that full hillside, and then that you get rid of that bright spot there. But overall, really good. But I'm gonna give it a 9 just because of that upper right corner.
Galactic fire water drop explosion.
All right, really cool here. Kind of a long, complex name there. Yeah, it's fun doing these kinds of photos. I like, a lot of times you see these done with milk or other opaque substances. So I like that this one's done with some sort of more translucent, like water, because then we're getting some really cool reflections there in the base of the splash with the little amoeba-looking things reflecting the colors in the background. So I think that works out really well. Obviously, super razor sharp. So good job with your capture as well as your processing. I guess you put something in the background to create this color splash. I wish it was just a little bit more out of focus. The right half of it looks really good, but the left half, we're seeing some bits of blue and some other things that are kind of distracting. I wish it was all just those reds and oranges and whites back there, more uniform like we see in the right half of the image. So yeah, I think when you go in this tight, I really need a nice even background. So that left kind of background's a little distracting to me. I'll give this one a 9. I think these are technically hard to do. I know there's some special equipment you need to use, but I give it a 9.
Ghostly.
Well, this one reminds me of Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia. I've been to a number of times, except we didn't have ghosts walking down the hallways of this particular wing that's closed to the public. So perhaps it's a different prison you're allowed to go into. But really nice. This is the image you probably did HDR to get all your exposure down all the way through the hallway from the lights to the dark. So you have really nice composition, framing it up. On this wall here on the left, I'd maybe darken that a little bit, that bright white spot of, I guess, where the paint is peeled. A little bit distracting there. I don't want any bright spots on my edges. I want all dark like we have on the right side. So my eyes continue to focus and follow the perspective down to the bright lights coming in the ceiling and being cast on the floor there. So I'd tone down that left part of the frame. But other than that, really good detail through here, really sharp throughout. And so I'm gonna give this one a 9. Just clean up that left side, and I think you could have it 10 there.
Ghosts of Forest Path.
So yeah, another interesting one with fog. I think this one probably could use a little bit more contrast. It is really, it's soft, right? It's fog, but I need to see just a little bit more of what's going on in the fog there. So I think you need to pump up the contrast just a little bit. Don't want to get too much. You don't want those tree stumps to jump out at you, jump off the page. You want this nice softness you got going on. But I think it's a little bit too soft. So I'd maybe just dial that up a little bit. And so we got some really strong elements in the fog there on the left with those little bits of trees popping up. But then the right half of the image is pretty plain. We have just one tree there kind of in the center of the right half of the image. So it looks a little barren. I think you're doing an image like this, you don't have to be realistic. I would Photoshop in maybe another branch, copy something else to kind of fill in that right side, or just maybe if you turned when you took the photo, veer a little bit to the left where there's a little bit more trees in the fog, so it's a little bit more balanced. I give this one an 8.
In the pink.
Really nice, waiting for the right subject to enter your frame. So it's laid the pink shirt along with the pink walls. So yeah, interesting crop. Is that zoomed in at all? Can you zoom out a little bit at all? Yes. Okay. Yeah, a little better. Yeah, because they look like when you showed it before, the frame was ending right at the bottom of her foot. Now we have a little bit of space beneath her back foot there. So yeah, that looks a lot better. Yeah, I like this one. I'd probably play with the contrast a little bit. I think you can make this one punch up a little bit more. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want it to look too ghastly. But I think you could pump it up just a hint more. But overall, I think it's really nice. she had taken catch her a half a step sooner, she would have been perfectly framed in that gap and not her head merging with the column. But people they don't always stop and pose for you. Yeah. Well, you can pay people. I work with models. I pay them to pose exactly how I want them. But this is, street scene. So you're taking what you get. So I'm gonna give this one. I give it an 8. I wish there was more there, but I don't know, 8.
Light on Sniffles.
Really nice Moody image here. Again, we've got lots of layers in our landscape, which looks really nice. Done good job with your exposure, capturing the brights in the upper left there, but not blowing out and still getting enough shadow detail. The mountains and stuff, especially Snuffles in that range there in the middle, I think you could darken that a little bit. Add some contrast in there, just make him a little heavier. Because right now it's kind of looks a little washed out. Because maybe that's just the way it was with the fog coming in, those clouds. But it's just such a large part of your image to have it so flat. I just wish there was a little bit more pump to it. So I'm gonna give this one I'll give it an 8.
Misty morning.
I liked that the photographer did a full mirror reflection here. We got really interesting objects there with the trees, and then we have just a little bit of something there on the left side, so maybe trees in the distance to balance it out so it's not just dead space over there. So I think your composition is really spot on. So this is one where I think you really got the contrast just right. It's like not too heavy. So you can still appreciate the fog, but not too washed out like some of the other photos we've seen of the foggy things. So I think you really nailed it with your settings here. So I really like this one. And the colors are really nice, the blues and the pinks in there. I'm gonna give this one a 10. I think it's very nice.
Monday morning mood.
I know I'm going to have several high scorers here, so we'll have to figure out which is the top of the class later. But really great job with this cityscape. Beautiful time of day to catch this early morning light coming in, creating those wonderful golden colors there, and then the wonderful long exposure of the cars really complements that golden color on the buildings with the gold colors from the lights of the cars. So really clever there, balancing that all out. We do have the strong element of this building here in the off center left. And then I wish there was a little bit something stronger on the right side of the frame just to balance out the image a little bit. It's just, I don't know. I think you just maybe need to crop a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. I don't think we need this bright spot of orange in the sky where we see the crane here on the left. Because my eye, much like some of the other things, my eye wants to pull over to that bright golden orange spot over there. And I don't want to go over there. I want to stay here in the center where there's the curved bridges and all the wonderful lights from the cars, beautiful light on the rest of the buildings. So I think you could trim off that left side a little bit. Might help with your balance a little bit. But I'm going to give this one a 9.
Mothers.
So interesting one here that this, I don't know if the sky was added in or if the sky was really that color. I guess if the sky was truly that color, I would expect a little bit more of that golden colored light on the graves here. And it's not. It's looking like kind of just post sunset kind of soft light here. So just to me, it seems like they don't add together, and maybe they were just in shadow, so they weren't getting some of that golden light. So to me, it looks like it's unnatural that I have such a beautiful orange, brilliant sky in the background, and then I'm not appreciating that light on the tombstones here. Much like we had the last image, we saw the light on the buildings complementing the light in the background. You knew it was all taken at the same time. Here it looks kind of added or something like that. And maybe just the way it was processed. But I like your composition with these 3 strong elements here of the tombstones. So to me, when you take a picture of someone else's creation, in this case, their tombstone is created by some sort of sculptor. I really like to see a photographer bring something new to it, like catch it in weird weather or covered in snow or covered in vines, something that's different than the way the original sculptor had intended it. And you kind of get that with this beautiful orange sky in the background, but again, not having that orange color on the tombstones, it looks misbalanced to me. So I guess I'm not quite. I'm left a little puzzled on this one, and so you puzzle the judge. It's good to keep the judge guessing, but you puzzle them too much, they get disinterested. So I'm gonna give this one a 7.
New York City sunset.
There we go. Yeah, I like this one. These these pilings in New York, well photographed. But I like this kind of original composition. I haven't seen this area from this vantage point before. So points for originality. Again, catching it right early in the morning, beautiful light in the sky, reflected on the buildings. We got this large cluster of them on the left. Again, I wish there was some balance there on the right, because it just kind of tapers off to just a few little things there. But wait for them to build some more buildings in New York and tell them to balance out their skyline. So you almost could think, like, do you need that half of the frame? You almost can split this photo in two. With the left half of the frame is all these tall skyscrapers, and then the right half is the original New York, right, with these smaller buildings. And so when you do a half and half, my eyes are playing ping pong. They don't know which way to go. So I'd almost crop. You don't have to crop off the whole right half, but I'd crop off some of it, and I think that would balance it out. You get more of a kind of a curve of low buildings up to high buildings, back down to some low buildings. I think that might balance it out. So I'd almost crop off the right, maybe 20% of this image. I think that would balance it out a lot better. But the lighting is really good. Your exposure is nice. Like the long exposure, so we get some motion there in the water. So I'm gonna give this one tricky. I'm gonna give this one an 8. But I think if you recrop it, it would fare a lot better.
Orange, you tired?
Yeah. Yeah, those rowers. People are rowers because they got these huge shoulders, and then their legs don't look built up at all, because it's all the upper body. Really nice, kind of tranquil scene here. The crew boats, by their nature, the people are perfectly spaced. So it's nice that they're all separate, and we get nice silhouettes of each of them. And excellent job cropping out the bright sun at the top. You don't need it, but if you include just enough so we get some nice glow up there, and then that nice gradient of orange. So I think your composition is excellent here. So great choice with this long, wide pano framing. I guess I wish there was a little bit more maybe detail in some of the water, or the crew boat the edges were a little bit more crisp. So it's kind of nit. So I'm gonna give it a 9.
Stranded.
Yeah, interesting. Kind of play with our classic rule of thirds here, putting this little pink thing in the PowerPoint at the intersection of those thirds. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, you followed a classical compositional thing, but to me, I don't know. I think the green stuff doesn't catch enough my interest to warrant 80% of your real estate. I think if the bug had been maybe more spectacular, wings spread or something like that, it could kind of hold out against all this rest of this green. But as it is, the kind of bug kind of lost there in the pink. I don't think you needed this particular composition with this image. Neat idea, relatively sharp. We'll give it an 8.
Guardians.
Can you zoom out a smidge on this one? Is that right? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so now we're seeing better composition on those trees there. So interesting what's done here. You don't quite get it at first, but there's some type of filter applied to those trees, one of these like fracture filters in Photoshop. Kind of adds a interesting element to it, makes it it's sort of realistic, but sort of artsy. So kind of nice. So I think it works well for this image because we got this heavy mass of the tree and those dark tree trunks balances out that bright kind of blown out sky in the upper left. So I think that was an interesting choice to create that texture in there to add another creative element to this. So kind of interesting, interesting technique. I give this one and I'm gonna give it an 8. I think we could have maybe done a little bit more here, maybe something with the sky to balance out. If you play with filters, maybe do something with the sky with them too. I'll leave it at 8.
Youthful antiquity.
Yeah, nice lighting on this subject here. We're catching some nice light on the face and nice and sharp there. And then we got some nice softness to the clothing and stuff like that. To me, it's and I'm not I guess I'm not a portraiture, and maybe someone's expert in portraiture would say something different. The lighting on the face is really nice. It's almost like it's a front lighting on the face, and the face looks great with the hair and the eyes really pop. But then I look back, and then the clothes, it's like the light is coming from the right because we're getting those shadows and stuff. So again, much like the photo we saw at the beginning of the set, it seems off to me. And maybe I'm too aware of lighting and where light's coming from that I get confused as why I have light from right on the outfit and then light from dead on the face. And so it just looks like it's been photoshopped, like it's two different photos stitched together. So I don't think it's blended quite as well. There's definitely a nice softness with the hair and the background and the clothing. But to me, it's not balanced right. I think maybe either the face needs to be a little less bright, dial down the luminosity to kind of blend in with the luminosity levels we're seeing in the clothing, or bring up the clothing just a little bit. You don't want it to compete with the face, but to me, it seems off balance. But really nice overall. Just think balance it a little bit differently. I'll give it a 9 just because I think there's definitely a lot of technique and technical processing that went into this. But it's a little off for me to give it any higher than a 9.
Okay. We do have 2 tied 10s.
Okay.
We have first one, this one, and this one. Oops. These 2. Pick a winner.
All right, pick a winner. 2 very different things. I get points for originality for the one on the right. The left one definitely pops out more at you, but how many fall photos can you see? I'm gonna go with the right, the foggy lake, just because I think it's more unique than the fall tree.
Okay.
The uniqueness wins out in this case.
Good, Chuck? Yep. Okay, so now we go to this would be beginner, intermediate, monochrome.
Right.
Anglers Ranch Bridge.
And how are we doing on time? Is this about a right level of commentary?
Yep. We're doing good.
Perfect. Yep.
Okay, great. All right, so this is kind of the photo I was thinking about when we saw some of those photos before the novice color with like the tentacles and the green pod things. Where this one also has very strong light on it. We're getting blowout on the upper beam there of this bridge. But I think in black and white, it's a more forgiving. And I think you can get away with that strong contrast of light in a monochrome setting versus had this been in color. So I think good choice for monochrome for this one. Really allows you to focus on the geometric shapes of the bridge, the wonderful curve in the road there on the right. And then we got, city and mountains and stuff in the background. So really kind of interesting. A lot of different elements here. I'm not quite sure they all quite play together as nicely as I would like. but I think it's an interesting idea here. I'm gonna give this one an 8.
Oh, sorry. Hang on. Okay.
In out, in out. All right.
Bison buddies.
All right. I like the composition here, the pair of bison. I think you know this winter and seeing the steam coming out of their mouth is really nice. To me, it's it's a flat image, and it kind of harkens back to an older type of photography where they didn't always have the high contrast that we can get with the cameras of today. So I wish it was a little bit more punch to it with more of a contrast and not as flat as it is. I think the composition is really nice. So I think you could edit this a little bit more because their muzzles and their kind of foreheads are dark. But that's really the darkest parts of the image, and then it gets really gray after that. So I'd like to see that kind of level of darkness throughout the whole animal, because I think his face is going to stand out enough because it's sharp in the shallow depth of field. So I think you're continue to play with this one because I think you have a good composition, but I think just edit it a little bit more would bring it out. So we'll give this one an 8.
Contemplation.
Interesting. And seems to me I don't remember seeing this one when we cycled through before, but yeah. So this is very interesting. I like the photographer. They've done this, we kind of shallow depth of field. We're shooting probably through some type of vegetation or something else. So getting all these blurry kind of other elements really adds to kind of this moodiness, kind of some quizzical eyes there. So really nice. And I like this. I think this is a good choice for black and white. I think that adds to the mood that the photographer is going for. And we got really good spread of tonal values for black and white. We got some strong jet blacks. We got lots of middle grays, and then little hits of white and some whiter parts, like in the lower right and then the upper center. And I think that balances out really well. So I think it's a very creative image and really good editing for your final product here. I give this one a 10.
Early morning mist in China.
You zoom out just a smidge more to see the whole frame.
That's it.
Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, it looks like you've used one of these frames that's in DxO's Nick Collection Silver FX Pro, but I don't know why it's cropped off at the bottom there. We're not seeing the whole frame there. We're not seeing the white band at the bottom. But
it's full screen for us. So.
Okay, well, so anyway, so photographer might want to just try to see how they can fix that. But that's kind of a nit, not really going to play into the rating overall. So really nice. I like the idea of doing this dark sepia, however you want to pronounce it, tone to kind of give this older look. And then of course you got this kind of vintage framing on it. I think your composition is really good. He's in good placement. Wish he was maybe a little bit sharper, but I think it's sharp enough. And I think being maybe not razor sharp definitely harkens back to kind of the older cameras that didn't have the technology that we have today. So this one's really, really nice. Good lighting. Like I said, good composition. I wish the frame wasn't cut off at the bottom like it is, but I'll take off 0.1 points for that, and I'll give it a 9.9. We'll round it up to a 10.
I think we should say that we are seeing the full frame on our screen.
Yeah.
So I don't feel that point should be taken off if that's what you have to.
All right. Well, I don't.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying we are seeing.
Wait. So now, wait.
Yeah, and so if you go into a tiebreaker, since there was another 10 also, that bottom, the top white and the bottom white are about even.
Yes.
And yeah.
So it must be something with zoom, because I don't have any like zoom in or zoom out set, but when I widen my window a little bit, I do start to see the bottom of it. So now I am seeing the full thing. That's interesting. I haven't seen that on any of the other photos. That weird cutoff. But okay, yeah, now I'm seeing the full frame out. So full points, 10.0.
Ghosts of Hudson Bay.
Yeah, so here's another one like the buffaloes where with the fog, it's very flat. And I think for this one it works a little bit better. Definitely gives it a more vintage look with it being like that in the fog. So we got nice silhouette here of the ship and a lot of interesting elements going on there to give it a nice, interesting silhouette. So I think to me, I guess I would need a little bit more, I think, to make it really stand out for me. I do love old abandoned wrecks and stuff like that, so you kind of pull up my heartstrings for that one. But I think it just needs a little something more for me to make it a wow image. So I'm gonna give this one an 8.
Lonely Night.
I like this one. I think the crop, we could come in a little bit off the left. I don't think we need to see this wall with the shadow. I'd almost crop that off right at where the bright wall ends on the left doorway. Because I don't think I need that bright spot of that, whatever that little semi-wall is, because it's kind of pulling me away from the subject here. I think if you did that too with this main post that's right here in the frame with the street sign, that would pull that to the left of the image a little bit more as well, and really keep focus on the person and then going down the sidewalk to his right where it's all lit up. So I think you can change your crop just a little bit, but really good job with the night scene with getting your exposure. I think this looks really good in monochrome. Had it been in color, I think those street signs probably be pretty vibrant colors, probably pull away from the mood you're trying to go for. So I think black and white was a smart choice here. I give this one a 9.
School's Out for Summer.
Yeah, fun title. So yeah, interesting to find this house or this old school building. Yeah, this one I guess the building's probably itself is leaning because it's so old. It's listing a little bit to the left. I think for me, we have a lot of middle gray here with your black and white. I think we need a little bit stretch that tonal range a little bit more, maybe a little bit more contrast or something like that, because it seems very muddled. So it doesn't quite have the full range of a black and white from pure white. Well, we're seeing pure whites, I guess, but I don't know. To me, I think you just maybe need to go in and lighten some of the vegetation just to balance it out, so that the school building stands out a little bit more. Overall composition is nice, but I think it needs a little bit more editing. We'll give it an 8.
Sentry in the Storm.
Okay. There you go. Yeah, so interesting. This one, a lot of grain in this one, although I think in this one's probably intentional. Kind of looks like an old film photo with that much grain. It's nice, soft, pleasing grain, but it doesn't look pixelated like it was a bad photo. It's just a lot of grain added to it. I'm not a fan of that myself, just personal preference, especially with today's software tools. We can just take all that grain away or add in just the amount we want. But I like the composition here with the bright water in the foreground, and then we got this wonderful, almost a silhouette, but there's detail there of the landscape and the single tree there, and then that balances well with the whites in the sky, which we're not seeing whites by the tree. So we got the tree kind of anchors the image on the left, and then we have the whites in the sky that carries you across the image. So really good job with the composition here. Again, I'm not a fan of the grain. I don't think you need it for this image. I'll give this one a 9.
Silent Witness.
Did we skip ahead one, or did we
No,
skip
this
one?
is Silent. This is the right one.
Okay.
Silent Witness.
Right. Interesting. I like this tree specimen you found kind of knocked over here. I think what really makes this image is the hoarfrost, a little bit of early morning frost on the branches of this tree. Really allows it to kind of stand out as an interesting element. And then having this band of white snow here in the foreground kind of anchors it in nicely. Then we have some nice elements going on in the background with the trees and the fog there. So really interesting. Most people would not take a picture of this broken down tree. And I think without the hoarfrost, maybe it wouldn't be quite as interesting. But with the hoarfrost, I think that really adds to it, makes it a worthy specimen. I give this one a 9.
House Cemetery.
Yeah, I think this one, when we saw this, when we went through the preview, to me, I call this one what I would call an in between. I wish it's not really close up enough to be a close up of like just the one cross there, but I feel like it's not wide enough. So it's kind of this in between. It's not a detailed shot. It's not a landscape. It's this in the middle. So to me, it feels too tight in. We're trying to cram a lot of stuff into the image. So it feels really tight. The crosshairs right up against the edge. Then we have this flag there nestling up against it. So it's not spaced out. And that's probably just the way it was. It was the way it was probably leaning. But I think this is a case where you might have wanted to do just a wider shot and show a little bit more of the flags, maybe a little bit more of the cemetery, so I could see that it wasn't just one lone cross on the road that was part of a collection of crosses in a cemetery. I think your black and white conversion is good. We got nice whites and blacks in there. I like the tones of the image, but I just think the composition's off. So we're gonna give it an 8.
Temple Boy.
A nice job here, getting focus on his eye and the bright light on his eye. It looks like you've tried to whiten the iris of the whites of the eye, which is classic thing to do for a portrait like this. I think you maybe went a little bit too heavy, because that, if you look at the whites of his shirt compared to the whites of his eye, it's unnatural. That his eye is that bright, just with the rest of the lighting on the image. So I would go in and dial that back a little bit, so his eyeball doesn't look so artificial. But otherwise, the lighting on the image is good. I like your cropping. It's kind of interesting with his kind of one eye, and he's leaning against this wall. Not quite sure what he's doing with his toe there, but so it's interesting. But I think it's the few little tweaks with your post-processing would make it look a lot more uniform. So we'll give this one a 9.
So this is Thorn Peak.
All right, so neat idea with this one. Again, we're at issue with such a small file, both in size and resolution, that it's looking really, we're losing a lot of detail in those clouds, and everything's just really blown out. I think the composition's very nice. I like that dark silhouette of the ridge line there. It's got some interesting character to it. So I think your proportions are really good as far as your amount of dark mountain versus the bright skies. And then this interesting kind of pinkish color there in the sky. It's just technically if most of if the photo is all about the clouds, I need to be able to see the detail in the clouds to some extent. And this one is just too overcooked, or it's too low a resolution, almost like a iPhone photo or something like that. So composition good. I just got to work on better resolution, either not cropped in so much, or just submit a higher resolution file so we can appreciate the details. But good, since it's a nice composition, I'm gonna give it a 7. But technically it needs some work.
This one's Wake.
I like the idea here. I don't really know exactly what's going on, but a lot of different interesting elements here, with the texture in the water, and then we got some dark shadows. I really like the dark shadows in the lower part of the image. They're kind of jagged and they blend well with the jaggedness of the water there. We get a nice transition. And it's all very abstracty. And then we go up to this wonderful, beautiful curve of this water that comes up here to the top right. And then it's interrupted by this dark black mass. And that is really unfortunate because unlike the dark mass in the lower left, that's kind of has a jagged edge and blends in well, transitions well into the rest of the image. The one in the upper right is just this big, heavy mass with very sharp edge to it. And so it really distracts from that beautiful curve that's coming up there and then the wonderful curves in the background. I mean, that's probably how it was for whatever this is that you photographed. And there's just really nothing you can do about it. I think if you try to crop that out, that whole thing, your balance of your image is going to be thrown off and you're going to mess up the blacks transitioning to the lighter areas in the bottom part of the image. So I think it is what it is. But unfortunately that creates a black hole that just wants to suck my eye in up there because I follow that curve of that water line right up to it. And then I just get swallowed up by that black mass. So I think just something to watch out for when you're composing this kind of image that jet blacks could be okay, but watch out for black holes. In this case, that's a black hole for me. So we're gonna give this one an 8.
Okay, we've got tie. Between this one and this one.
Oh, tricky. Two very different pictures. So when I come to like a tiebreak on this, I think for execution level, you both were really good. Your composition was both really good, but clearly very different images. So to me, I always use uniqueness as my tiebreaker. And I think to me, the one on the left of the baboon or monkey, whatever he is, to me, it's more unique. I've seen pictures of interesting, Chinese fishermen on rivers. I've seen images similar to that before, but I haven't seen this interesting expression of the monkey on the left. So he'll win out. So give it to the monkey.
The monkey wins.
The monkey.
That's monochrome.
You gotta let the Wookiee win sometimes. That's what I learned in Star Wars.
Alone and forgotten.
All right. Yeah. So it was interesting. We're talking about one with the cemetery. So here's a nice wide shot of the cemetery. This one we got this. I guess this alone and forgotten. This one kind of marker here, right in dead center of the frame. I'm not really sure that was the best compositional choice. I think you could have stepped a little bit to the left and not brought this little fenced in area, not brought that right up to the edge and given that a little bit more space to breathe and not, make that one marker in the foreground dead center. I don't think you need that. The black and white conversion here, I think it's kind of a little bit more crunched in on the middle grays. I wish there was a little bit more spread there with the whites and the blacks. So looking a little muddled to me. So I think there's a few things off that. I don't think you need as much sky as you included. There's plenty of detail and interesting things going on in the bottom with the cemetery and the trees and the snow. You didn't need that. There's not much going on in the sky, so I would take half of that sky off. Just crop that off. You just don't need that much dead space up there. There's plenty of dead space with the white of the snow throughout the field there that you don't need that to balance the image. So I give this one a 7.
Breaking storm on the plain.
Really nice job with the pano here. There's little bits of farm elements there on the bottom, and then the interesting, God rays as they call them, breaking down through the sky. The dark upper left, a little disturbing to me, but I think it's balanced enough well with the dark cloud we see on the right side of the image, and then kind of the dark foreground. So I think he did a good job trying to balance out all the elements. He probably could have punched it up a little bit more with the contrast, maybe just in the foreground where the farms are, just to make those pop just a smidge more. But overall, it's really nice. I'm gonna give it a 9.
Dead shot.
Good shot. Yeah, so kind of like some of the other studio shots, being a little more critical because I think in the studio you have a lot more control of what's going on. I like the light on her face. I don't think you need the light on the bun of her hair. So I think it looks like you probably had the light on stage left there. I don't think you needed that much light on the back of her hair and the wall behind her. So I would just tone that way down to much softer light back there. So the focus stays on her face and her lips pointing to the smoke coming out of the gun there. So I think that your overall composition is fine, but I think if you just play with that a little bit more, and then even the light on her hands, I know that's probably where the stage light's coming in, shining on all that, but I would just tone down her hands a little bit. It's almost like you'd need to put a vignette on this. That might be a solution, just a really tight vignette around her face and the gun, and then everything else is a lot softer and not as bright. So neat idea. It's kind of a cool looking steampunk kind of gun. It's very interesting. But I'm gonna give it an 8.
Foggy morning.
Oh, so kind of like the one we saw before. It's just slightly different type of view. Love the reflection on this. So I think that's a smart choice. Include that full reflection. Lot going on there. Starting to blow out a little bit in the top center right above those trees. So wish you could tone that down just a little bit. But your composition's nice. Yeah, and you got the couple of trees there in the back on the right there, balances out that part of the image. So I think if you just play with the upper center sky and tone that down just a smidgen, it'd be even more powerful. I'm gonna give it I'll give this one an 8.
Heading home.
Really nice on this one. This is a really good black and white conversion with really strong blacks, strong whites, lots of shades of gray in the middle. We got some strong light on her bonnet, I guess. I don't know what's going on there, but that definitely does kind of pull me right to her head there, right to the subject. Don't know why that's quite so bright white compared to all the other whites in the image. So you might want to tone that down a little bit. Kind of nit. But otherwise, really nice lighting throughout. She's in somewhat of a shadow, but still plenty of detail on her and the dog that she's walking. And just love that perspective of those houses kind of going off into the distance. So really great job on the editing on this one. This is one where subject's kind of in dead center, but it works for this particular image. So really nice. Let me give this one a 10.
History fading.
Yeah, I think on this one, this is probably what it looked like to you with the light, just the last bit of light coming in, creating these kind of rim lights on these tombstones there, but kind of like the one we saw earlier in the evening with the mother one, with the 3 tall ones. If I got 2 tombstones right here in the foreground, nice and sharp, I wish they had a little bit more light on them, because if they're going to be right up in my face and nice and sharp, I wish they had a little bit more light on them. And I think that's just the way the light was, but that doesn't mean that's the way the light has to be, right? I think you could come in and just brighten up these 2 foreground tombstones just a little bit. You don't want to do it over so it doesn't look too artificial, but you could brighten those up just a little bit so they pop out a little bit more. I don't think you have a bit of dead space to the right of the small Corporal War Franklin or whatever, W. Franklin there. And then some bright tombstones right on the edge of your frame.
Yeah.
And I would just crop off a little bit off the right edge there. Everyone all right? I'm hearing some talking in the room.
Can they hear me out there? Can those on Zoom? Hey, Greg, I just put a message out there on the chat, but we lost power on the speaker that is bringing your voice into our program and so forth. So we're looking that up right now with a direct power source. So hold on for just 1 second. We'll be right there.
Okay, yeah, tell me when to continue.
We're there now.
Okay,
So I
okay.
think we just lost probably the last maybe 45 seconds or so of that last critique.
Yeah, so I was just saying, crop off a little bit off the right. We have some bright tombstones right on the edge of the frame, kind of pull my eye away. So I would just crop off those two bright tombstones on the far right side of the frame, and then just try to brighten up a little bit the shadow detail on these front two foreground tombstones. I give this one an 8.
Misty Midnight Walk.
I like this one, really nice on this one, and I wish the street lights were just toned down a little bit so we didn't get that really bright white curve going above those people. I wish that was toned down just a hair. But I think you needed the exposure needed to get the shadow detail on the rest of the image. So I think you made good with what the situation gave you. But really nice job waiting for the right moment to get these two couples framed up in the image. And so I like your cropping here. I like how you left just a little bit of space to the right of that tree on the right side of the frame. So that wasn't just a total dead space there, because I think that balances out with what's going on the left. So really nice. I just wish the street lights were just a little bit not quite as bright. We'll give this one a 9.
Rain Down on Me.
Yeah, nice light on this statue, crucifix with Mary there. So you get some nice lighting there, like how you kind of balanced out, kind of dark in the background. But again, like I said before, and it's just maybe a pet peeve of me, and maybe a different judge would say differently. But when you showing someone else's artwork, I wish you could bring something different to it. And I think just some dramatic lighting on it, although interesting, is really just showcasing someone else's art, in my opinion. So it's hard for me to give it high marks when someone else has done most of the work. I know that's me, and maybe a different judge will say something differently. But good job with your processing to create a very good documentary image of this tombstone or sculpture, whatever this is, and create some interesting lighting on it. But I think there's not enough of your stamp as an artist on it for me to give it higher marks. So I'll give this one an 8.
Setting the Mood.
Really nice the layers here of the different the mountains. We got some dark mountains here in the foreground and the different shades of gray. So really nice on this one. Like the wide shot. It's kind of an image that's been done a lot of times. So to me, it doesn't score high on the uniqueness, but it's a nice landscape. I give this one an 8.
Silent Streets of Whitechapel.
Yeah, another nice. I wonder if it's the same photographer that did the one of the lady walking the dog. Very similar here with the subject matter and then the curved street. Yeah, I don't know what's going on in the upper right corner. I guess that's another building behind it. But it causes these rooftops to kind of blend in. Almost like you needed to, in your upper right corner, maybe darken that or lighten it so it's not the same tonality, so that the buildings could stand out a little bit more, that repeating kind of arches, or not arches, triangles at the top. But overall, nice composition. It's nice, heavy contrast, black and white. I'll give it a 9.
Standing on Guard.
Yeah, really nice balance here with the trees in the fog. I think you got a really nice composition. Just little trees popping out everywhere amongst the fog. I think you've heard me comment before in some of the other images today about contrast levels. I think this one's really good. Good balance between creating that soft image, but still some pop of the trees blending throughout. This one's really pretty. I mean, sometimes a simple image can be just really well executed, and I think that's the case here. A simple image, but good composition, good exposure. I really like it. I'm gonna give this one a 10.
The Gallery.
I liked the idea of this one. I just wished this gentleman here that's walking was, you caught him at a slightly different moment. He's a little squished up. I almost, if you'd caught him a half second before, maybe his back leg would have been stretched out a little bit further, giving a slightly more interesting pose. I'm guessing he has his hands in his pocket or something like that. So I think you maybe missed the decisive moment, as Henry would say. But your black and white convergence is really good. I think the overall composition's fine. I think it's just that person, you need to catch them in a slightly different stride, since they are such a key element to this image. I'll give this one an 8.
Trees in the mist.
So unlike essentially we just see this one just a few photos after we saw the other one with trees and fog. I think this one, it's interesting with just the sliver of trees and then everything else is eclipsed by fog. But if that's the case, I think you would do better with a panoramic crop. I don't think we need as much white as we have. So if you kind of balance it, if you look at it, we have the tree line here in the middle takes up a quarter of the image, and then 75% of the image is white. To me, I like white. I like minimalist images, but to me it's too much white. So I'd shave off a little bit off the bottom, a little bit off the top, and make it a little bit more of a pano crop. And I think that would also play well with that kind of stretching out that center portion. But I think your exposure and stuff is good, but I would just pick a slightly different crop. We'll give this one an 8.
Valley of Clouds.
Right. And this one, it's, I guess, the way, okay, there you go. The way it was processed with this kind of bluish tone. I don't think, for me, that works for this image. I know the blue, the kind of cooler tone, can sometimes work with a monochrome image. I'm not sure it's the right choice for this. It starts to make it look a little garish to me, and less natural. I think for this particular image, sometimes that blue tone can work. I'm not sure it's the right choice for this one. I like your composition. Kind of catching the bits of mountains coming up here. I think you've done well with your contrast levels. So those little bits of elements pop amongst the clouds. But I think with the tonality, to me, it looks overcooked, a little too heavy-handed with some of the processing. So I think you could dial it back a little bit, and you might have a better image. So I'm going to give it an 8.
Okay. We have tie.
Again, I'm getting good at these ties.
We're getting good at the ties. We have heading home.
Lady
Standing
and the
guard.
tree and the foggy trees, I think. The standing on guard.
Oops.
Ugh. Making it tough for me. Two very different images. Oh, it's so tricky. I'm going to give it this time to the one on the left, the walking home. I think they're both really nice images. Obviously, I give them both 10s. But I think the one on the left took a lot more work in the darkroom, in the digital darkroom in this case. So I'm going to give points for effort put into negative. Let's give it to the lady there.
Okay. So, Chuck? I think so.
Yeah.
So back to the beginner intermediate digital color. Next award went to Greek Isle White by Kathy Galen. Place went to Rainy Night and
We can't hear you.
Barely hear what you're saying.
Go ahead, Chuck. First place went to Rainy Night in Museum by Scott Bourne.
what did Greek Isle?
Yeah, mention that one there.
So, Judge went to Greek Isle White by Kathy Bela. Second place went to Aurora's Ribbons by Jane Richards. Third place went to Brilliant Competition, also by Jane. And an honorable mention went to Sun Rays by Bruce Ryman. Moving on to advanced digital color. The judge goes to Misty Morning by John McCluskey. First place goes to Blinding Petals by Jessica Villa. Second place, Ghostly by Dave Purcell. Third place, Evening on the Farm by Jeff Woodard. And the honorable mention, Galactic Fire Water Drop Explosion by Bruce Norman. Motto. The Judgment Award went to Contemplation by Bruce Ryman. First place, Temple Boy by Jane Richards. Second place, Early Morning Mist in China, also by Jane Richards. Third place, Bison Buddies by Karen Ryman. And honorable mention, Lonely Night by Kathy Bera. And finally, Advanced Digital Motto. Judge Award and first place, Heading Home, Susan Wengler. Second place, Silent Streets of Whitechapel, Dave Purcell. Third place, Misty Midnight Walk, also by Dave Purcell. And honorable mention, Dead Shot by Bruce Norman.
Can you run through them just to show?
We're gonna have, Bruce will run through each of the images real quickly with the names, the makers.
You want me to list off the name and besides I have a sheet?
I got my sheet here. So I think I'm right. Anyway, so Alien Pogs, Kathy Balla. Alien Pogs, Kathy Balla. Jane Richards. Brethren Competition, Jane Richards. Carolyn Deep Frost, Carolyn, oh, skip that one, sorry. Don't Walk in the Grass, Carolyn Ryman. Boom by Jeff Scott. Greek Isle White by Kathy Balla. Hot Pots in the Fog, Scott Bourne. Petersburg Harbor, Alaska, James Easton. Raining on Igazan, Scott Bourne.
I'll put you out of your misery. It's Ankhausen.
Thanks.
It's by Bruce Ryman. Tentacles by Gary Larson. The Heavens by Jeff Scott. The color.
Octopus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Golden Petals, Jessica Villa. Autumn Red, Terry Viberkis. Blue on Blue, Susan Langer. Evening on the Farm. Oh wait, skip one. Did I skip one?
No.
Where'd it go? Evening on the Farm. My sheets are ordered. Jeff Woodard. Yeah, Clash of the Seasons is Terry Viberkis. Galactic Water Explosion, Bruce Norman. Ghostly, Dave Purcell. Ghosts of the Forest Pass, John McCluskey. In the Pink, Dave Purcell. Light on Snuffles, Jeff Woodard, sorry. Misty Morning, John McCluskey. Monday Morning Mood, Michael Rhino. Mothers, Karina Zaragoza. New York City Sunset, Susan Langer. Orange You Tired, Michael Rhino. Stranded, Karina Zaragoza.
Oh, he's not here. Could you ask him?
The Guardians, Bruce Norman. Beautiful Antiquity, Jessica Villa. All right. Sorry, I'm butchering everybody's name here. All right. Beginner intermediate motto. Anglers Ranch Bridge, Jeff Scott. Bison Buddies, Carolyn Ryman. Contemplation, Bruce Ryman. Early Morning Mist in China, Jane Richards, should have been deleted. Hudson Bay, Bruce Ryman. Lonely Night, Kathy Balla. School's Out for Summer, James Easton. Century in the Storm, Scott Bjorn. Silent Witness, Scott Bjorn. Tyler Cemetery, Kathy Balla. Temple Boy, Jane Richards. Thorn Peak, Jeff Scott. Wake, James Easton. Esky.
I'll let you read.
This is advanced mono. John McCluskey, Alone and Forgotten. Breaking Storm on the Plain, John McCluskey. Dead Shot, Bruce Norman. Foggy Morning, Michael Rhino. Heading Home, Susan Langer. History Fading, Carino Zaragoza. Misty Midnight Walk, Dave Purcell. Rain Down on Me, sorry. Rain Down on Me, Carino Zaragoza. Setting the Mood, Michael Rhino. Silent Streets of Whitechapel, Dave Purcell. Standing on Guard, Jeff Woodard. The Gallery, Susan Langer. Trees in the Mist, Jeff Woodard. Valley of Clouds, Bruce Norman.
Good job, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of really good images in that. Thank you, everybody, for participating tonight.
Thanks, Greg.
And yeah, Greg, I was gonna say, thank you so much. Great commentary tonight. I wrote down some notes and so forth of things I know I need to start paying a little bit more attention to. A lot of great comments on composition, ideas on cropping, color images that would work good in black and white. Look out for those black holes, and then also just balance in the scenes in that. A lot of really good comments in that.
Great. I'm glad I was educational.
Yeah, this is fantastic.
Okay, we'll put the recording up probably in a week or so. For all of you at home, we'll let you go, and we're gonna clean it through.
We'll do that. Thank you, everybody.
Everybody.
Have a good night. Sorry I kept you a little later than normal.
Yes, thank you.